Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Black Diamond Podcast. This is episode 12. I am your host, Chris Hecker, and I am joined, as always, by Jerry Durney. Jerry is smoking a cigar. I'm not sure why, but it looks like he's smoking a cigar.
Well,
Uh,
I did I not say last week that if the White Sox beat the Yankees that this would happen?
oh, you did say that.
I'm a man of my
I
word.
apparently I'm not a man of my word because I did not cancel my internet. I am here to face the music and face the cigar smoking. My bad. I totally
Prop.
forgot that you. I totally forgot you said you were gonna do that. Are you actually like a cigar smoker, or like did you just, or is this just fully like? Are you
Well,
just committed to the bit?
so this is a prop that I got last year for Halloween because I was Jameson from the Spider-Man movies. And if I'm going to commit to a bit, like I'm doing it with 2 feet in. Um, Normally I will only otherwise smoke cigars if it's a celebration. I'm not a regular once a
Right.
day type of thing. But like if something significant happens, sure, that's probably the extent of mine.
Yeah. Now I guess we'd have to check the tape. So I don't remember. Did you say you would smoke a cigar if the White Sox ended their losing streak against the Yankees,
You
or
know what?
just
I
if they
I think you're
won?
right.
Yeah,
But
'cause
also it was 12-2. Like it kind of felt like
it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. If you're someone who enjoys the tears of Yankee fans, or if you're someone who enjoys any sort of downfall that they may have, it's definitely an occasion. Them getting trounced by the White Sox is definitely an occasion worthy of smoking a cigar.
and I
Um,
don't want to be accused of not reading the room. I am fully aware my team's down 9-4 to the A's as we record this. So
Yeah, and the
you know,
Yankees do have a lead right now. They're playing a lot more like they should be playing against the White Sox right now. They're up 3-0. Well, really, it's Juan Soto 3 and the White Sox nothing. Juan Soto has 2 home runs and has accounted for all the RBIs. But yeah, either way, it's as of right now, famous last words. Things are going much more smoothly at the moment for the Yankees. But either way,
uh,
I mean, it was the first time that the White Sox. It was the first time the White Sox had like a double-digit win the entire year. So even though it's not necessarily breaking the streak, I would still say that it is certainly worthy of smoking the cigar. But I was going to say, I give you hella props for remembering that and for doing that. Number one, because I didn't remember. Number two, like, if I would have said that I was going to smoke a cigar if like something unfortunate or funny happened to the Mets, I probably wouldn't have committed to it because I don't like cigars. Unless you take the cigar part out of it and put something else in it, then I kind of like them.
I should
Uh,
also point out I've said I've only done them in celebrations, and I did them after Liverpool won the Premier League in 2020, when the Bucks won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and when North Carolina retired Coach K a couple years ago. In between the Final Four and the title game, even like North Carolina hadn't won the national title game hadn't been played yet, but like we retired Coach K. Like if that's not cause for celebration,
Absolutely. Yeah,
what
absolutely. Is
is?
that wait, so is that like an actual like that's not an actual cigar, is it? Like, are
Oh
you
no, no, it's a
actually
prop.
puffing? Oh, okay.
No, it's like a fake thing. Like if you go to like Party City or something, they're on sale.
Oh, all right. So it's
Yeah,
just like permanently it just permanently looks lit.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the White Sox definitely smoking on that Yankees pack.
I want
Before we get
pictures of Spider-Man.
I'm the guy from Spider-Man. Before we get more into that, we do have a little bit of a PSA. So this is something that we discussed before Jerry joined the show when it was me and Maddie, who God rest his soul. I mean, he's not dead, but he's I guess just off the grid, off the face of the earth, as far as as far as the Ascension Podcast Network is concerned.
He
Um,
died in a
you
terrible
know,
milk drinking accident. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, yeah. The milk cartons, the milk cartons are out there, and you hate to see it, but it was something that we had talked about when it was me and him that uh, we might have to change the name because this is a this is a fully Caucasian podcast. So that
I
was
could not look further white right now with the lighting.
yeah. So that was something we had discussed at that time. Then, things happened, and we kind of had to, reestablish like who was going to be, you know, what the future of this show was going to be, and who was going to be running the show. But we've reached a point now where it's me and Jerry got a pretty good thing going. So we are once again officially a fully Caucasian podcast. So we, we talked about it. We talked about it with Case as well, and we decided to the best way to do this would be to come up with a few names and put it up to a vote. Leave it up to you, the people, the viewers, the listeners, the fans, the patrons, whatever your whatever level of support that you have for our show. So and for the Ascension Podcast Network. So if you go to our Twitter at BDPod24, the pin tweet is a poll where you can vote on the new name. Currently, as of the time of this recording, there are 2 days and 16 hours left. Hopefully by the time we get this up, hopefully there will be like a good, a solid 48 hours left in the poll. So, between now and Friday afternoon, whenever you see this, go to our Twitter and vote on that poll to make your voice heard. So we narrowed it down to four names. The choices are Grand Slam Station, Grand Slam Central, Station to Station Pod. There's some sci-fi podcast called Station to Station, but we'll do something to make sure we differentiate ourselves if that wins. Or the 4 to 7 pod, since this is a Mets Yankees podcast, that resembles the subway lines, for the respective subways for both the Yankees and the Mets. So as of right now, we have 10 votes. 4 to 7 pod is in the lead with four votes for 40%. Station to Station is in second with 3 for 30%. We have Grand Slam Central in second with 20%, and then Grand Slam Station is in last place with 10%. So go vote, make your voice heard. Democracy is at stake.
Or if you've got an idea for a name.
Yeah, or if you have an idea, you can reply. We are we're open to any ideas that that anyone might have. So just wanted to get that PSA out there, but back to baseball. So just kind of transitioning. We'll go back to we'll start off with the Yankees. So, last night the Yankees suffer probably their most. I guess you could say last night was probably their most embarrassing loss of the season. I mean, they lost 12-2 to the worst team in baseball. There were blunders. Alex Verdugo had like a check swing bunt, sort of just kind of like a weird play where a bunt was not called and he was not supposed to bunt, but he kind of just chose to bunt anyway. And it resulted in him popping it right back up to the pitcher. Uh, so, so that was fun. Prior to that, they had taken 2 out of 3 against the Texas Rangers, and they had dropped 2 out of 3 to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So they're still tied for, I believe, the best record in baseball right now, or very close to it. It's pretty much between them and so it's between them and the O's at the moment. Um, well, right now, actually, Cleveland has the best record in baseball, but and then the Dodgers are like a half game behind them, and then Yankees and O's are both a game behind Cleveland for the best record. So, can't say the sky's falling too much, but it's funny. The Yankees are kind of like the ultimate. I was talking about my friend who's also a Yankees fan. We were talking about this the other day. The Yankees are kind of like the ultimate like stats versus eye test type of team. Because when you look at the numbers and you look at the stats, um, you know, their bullpen, they have a top 5 ERA in the league. Aaron Boone has like a 600 over 600 career winning percentage as manager. And if you look at like all the hitting metrics, for the team, they're all pretty good. They have one of the best records in the sport. Yet yet every game, and part of this is just like I think part of it is like Yankee fans just like kind of overreacting and not knowing how good they have it. But I think that there is part of it that's kind of legitimate, like where it doesn't really feel that way or necessarily always look that way. They do have some pretty bad stretches of baseball, and they have you know, Boone definitely makes some head scratching decisions, and they'll definitely have some games where, it's like, how is this like one of the teams that is supposed to be like contending for the World Series when like they can't even where they can't even lose by single digits to the historically bad Chicago White Sox. So it's kind of this interesting conundrum, and like the bullpen numbers suggest, that they're a top 5 bullpen in baseball. But then when you watch the games, it's like they never make it easy. Like the other day, they had a pretty comfortable lead against the Rangers on Sunday, and then I think they were up. They were up like 6-1 at one point, and then they end up losing, or they end up winning, but they end up winning 8-7. And even in that last inning, like Clay Holmes was like making it like very, he was making it very interesting, and finally was able to shut the door. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like hard to really get a pulse on the team, and kind of leads me to a greater point, like that me and my friend were discussing, which is maybe like none of the teams in baseball are really that good. Either
Yeah, I
that
don't think
or
like there's not a runaway favorite.
Yeah, either that or maybe there's a lot of good teams, and you know teams will and we're just going through the ebbs and flows of a season where teams will look like at one they're like for a couple of months the Yankees looked like one of the worst teams in baseball. Statistically, they had one of the worst records in baseball over like a 30-day stretch from like the middle of June towards like the end of July before the trade deadline. Then like for the first week or two of August, they looked like one of the best teams in the league again. It was like, all right, World Series back on, baby, let's go. And then now I feel like they're kind of. I feel like now they're kind of like settling in. They're kind of settling in like somewhere in between that.
I mean, these can happen with World Series teams. I mean, I think I remember. I think
Yeah,
it was the
like the Phillies are
27.
on like a really bad stretch right now too.
Oh, warms my heart. But the 2017 Dodgers, I think won over 100 games. Might have been like 105 or 106 or something like that. And I think at one point in September they were like 1-18. Like these random stretches even happen to the very best teams for no reason, other than just baseball's weird like that. Not the weird that's in the news right now, but just it's fluky
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, not the word weird that you'll get canceled for or whatever it is. God, people are so sensitive these days.
Oh
But
yeah, I mean even Keith's on the broadcast complaining about it, but I have I have my ideas about why he's mad about that, but carry on.
yeah, no need to give that too much attention. But yeah, it's definitely kind of an interesting time. like Mark Leiter Jr. the other day, he had a he had kind of a bad game, which kind of led to that game being like more interesting than it should have been. And I'll give him a pass because I think like I saw something like before that he hadn't given up like 2 home runs in a game in like 45 games or something. So sometimes it's just like so sometimes you're just gonna have those weird ebbs and flows, and it's just a matter, I guess, of I guess it's just a matter of righting the ship and moving forward.
Just don't
So
let stuff snowball.
don't let a don't let a 12-2 loss to the Chicago White Sox turn into like losing a series against the White Sox. I say as Nestor Cortez gives up a leadoff double in the bottom of the 6th inning, might be might want to consider taking him out of the game now. That's just just my opinion though.
And I hear that as I watched my team. Looks like they're on their way to their 4th loss in a row, and 5 out of 7 and 7 out of 10 now. Yeah, I think I said this 16 game stretch they needed to go 12-4. I think they are now currently
0-12.
I think they might be at like 3-9 on this stretch now. It's not great.
Yeah, so they basically so they basically fumbled they basically fumbled the bag. But yeah.
Funny thing is, everyone else is fumbling it too in the NL.
Yeah, it's like no one really seems to want that last wild card spot. It doesn't seem like it doesn't really seem like the Mets want it. The Braves don't really seem to want it that much either. The Giants and the Cardinals have they've definitely fallen back down to earth. I feel like the Reds, I feel like their stock might be rising a little bit, and same with the Cubs. And then the Pirates have
just committed seppuku on the field.
Who?
I'm saying the Pirates have committed seppuku on the field.
Oh yeah, they have. I've been in attendance for quite a few of the seppukus that have occurred. They are they're down pretty horrendously right now. And there was my friend sent a picture to our group chat, and it was just like it was a picture of Paul Skeens with like a very like depressed look on his face. It was after the game against the Diamondbacks last weekend where he went a solid 5 in the 3rd, and the Pirates had like a 4-1 lead when he came out of the game, and then their bullpen just completely fumbled the games, and it was just like he was just like kind of watching the game helplessly afterwards, like, and it's just like, and the caption my friend chose for that picture was just like, when everyone around you sucks and you know it.
It's always weird to me that anytime Colin Holderman has a bad outing, there's a weird subset of Mets Twitter. They're like, see, the Vogelbach trade wasn't that bad. And no, it was. They could have done better at the deadline that year, and they went and got him and Darren Ruff to fix the DH. No, it was bad. They could have sat him last year and let Mark Vientos get a head start on his career. No, but they had to play him every day so he could just look at every single pitch. No, it was bad.
Oh yeah, no, that's that's a weird victory lap to try to take. I feel like that's classic. Like, I feel like those are just classic like agenda people on Twitter. Like, they had their agendas, and the second their agenda might be like like for the first 3-4 months of the season, that agenda was dead and buried. It was not a discussion. And then the second he has like a little bit of a bad stretch, it's like those people just come out of the woodworks to remind you, oh no, actually I was right. Forget about the fact that Daniel Vogelbach's not even on the team anymore, but they were totally right to make that trade.
Well, I mean, this has been a Mets Twitter thing forever. I mean, I don't know if you would know about this, but there's also a weird number of people every year on the anniversary of Santana's no-hitter that'll be like, Oh wow! So you're really going to celebrate a guy ending his career prematurely just so you guys could have one night of fun? Yes, yes, we will. I don't think Johan even feels bad about it at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll
it
love it here
was.
forever for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that and like, it was kind of, if I remember correctly, wasn't it kind of his choice to stay in the game too?
Yeah,
Like he definitely had a say in that.
I also
Uh,
think, me personally, I think if you told Johan that night, like, "Hey, you're going to do this, but you're not going to pitch much longer after this," I don't think he'd change anything.
I don't think so either. I mean, at that point, he was kind of getting, he was kind of on the back nine of his career at that point
Oh,
anyway.
definitely.
So like, like how much time did he actually sacrifice
Yeah.
from going the extra innings to go ahead and get that no hitter, even though there kind of was a hit, but we don't have to talk about
No, we Men in Black the memory flashy thing.
it. Yep, never happened.
Nope.
um but yeah, those were, I guess those were slightly better times than the stretch that you're enduring now. So
Speaking of no hits, oh boy, the weekend was brutal.
oh yeah. Do you want to talk about it?
I mean, what more is there to say then? It's just if this team's not going to hit, like if you don't score, you don't win. I mean,
It's
not to be reductive, but like it, Lindor was the only guy who had any sort of success hitting in the series over the weekend. Guys weren't in scoring position, and even before that, even with their troubles in Colorado and Anaheim, the issue continues to be when they've had these chances to drive in runs, they don't. And if I have the baseball reference numbers in front of me, and it's like their high leverage numbers this year. It's 250, 338, 426. And it's like their clutch stats, late and close, they're hitting 190 as a team, a 289 on base percentage. 2 outs and runners in scoring position, they're hitting 247. In a tie game, they're hitting 229. It's and all their numbers when they're well ahead, when it's 4 more runs, that's when they're hitting close to 300. It's like I don't even put that. I know like Severino didn't have the greatest outing on Sunday night, but they had 4 hits. You don't score, you don't win. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and
And
I mean he wasn't great, but like he also wasn't terrible. Like it's not like he didn't give you guys a chance. I feel like
his
I
defense didn't help him.
yeah, the defense also didn't help him out. And I know before we were recording, the Mets had another defensive blunder. Um, my source is you on that one, but
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, like he didn't have the worst outing ever. He I think went. I'm pulling up his numbers now, but he went. He went 5 and he gave up 4 runs. So not terrible. It was really Stanek and it was really Stanek and Ottavino and Young in the following inning where like shit really got blown up and really blew that game open.
Even then,
Uh,
like once Raleigh hit the home run that made it 4-0. I mean, I know I'm not alone in this. There were a lot of Met fans who were like, "Well, this one's over."
yeah,
And the night before, when Mania gave up 3 in the first inning, it's like, well, they're not scoring 4 on Logan Gilbert. This game's over.
yeah,
It's like prove me
it's
wrong.
always yeah, it's always tough when a 4-run deficit feels more like an 8 or a 10-run deficit, like
Yep.
because it's like 4 runs is usually like that's usually when I feel like a game is like on the cusp of being over. It's like all right, and my God, Juan Soto has hit a 3rd home run. This
Wowzers.
man cannot be stopped. That's 33 on the year. But it's like Yeah, you know you're like kind of down in a bad way when like a 4 run deficit feels more like double that, because like to me it's like 4 runs, being down 4 runs, the way it should feel is like, okay, like this isn't ideal, but we have a good inning, we load up the bases, one swing of the bat can tie the game.
Right.
And when you don't have that feeling, like, and when you just kind of know, like, all right, like our bats are like dead in the water right now, and this feels like insurmountable. And I'm sure a lot of that feeling also, was just like the lingering of the past few days before that too, leading up to that, because it was really just it was really just a it was really just not a lot of life in the Mets lineup in Seattle.
I mean, that's the thing.
Nor
It's like we can look at it like, okay, they ran into Castillo, Gilbert, and Bryce Miller. Like, okay, they're going to make a lot of teams look like that. If we had been hitting the way we were in June for the 2 series leading into that, I'd go, yeah. Sometimes you just run into a good staff. It happens. But all the evidence in the 2 weeks prior to that doesn't make it feel good. And I think Nimmo's hitting what, like 160 for the second half. I know Pete had a 2-run single tonight, but before that, he was in like an 0 for 15 hole. Francisco Alvarez, I think, was hitting over 300 at one point. I think he's under 260 at this point. It just feels like so many bats have not only come back to earth, but went through the earth at this point. And now you're just waiting for it to almost sort of level out. And
yeah.
you're just afraid that by the time they do, it's going to be too late.
Yeah. Well, I think I know what the issue is with Brandon Nimmo. So since there's been a pretty dramatic shift in the momentum of the presidential election, coinciding with Kamala Harris becoming the nominee, and getting Tim Walz as her running mate. Since Tim Walz, these are the advanced sabermetrics that you have to pay $900 a month for. Since Tim Walz was named Kamala Harris's running mate, Brandon Nimmo has a batting average of 167 with a 564 OPS and a 33% strikeout rate.
I miss when I
So
get to do these
that's
jokes about Josh Donaldson.
yeah, yeah. Josh Donaldson. If one person I don't miss at all, and hope he's doing terrible, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I think the real problem, I think, with Nimmo is that I think he's probably, so this year, he had a bit of a surge, at least earlier in the year. He had a bit of a surge in power where he was hitting a lot more home runs than he really ever has his whole career. And I think maybe that got to him a little bit, and maybe kind of changed a little bit of his approach, where he
Yeah, that's
might
fair.
be he might be like swinging a little, like he might be swinging too much more, like he might be going for the long ball, like a little too much more, and like kind of just leaving base hits on the table in the pursuit of more power. um it
Which
is
you're always going to give up walks if you're chasing home runs like that, which like understandable with the trade off. Which even with his skill set, like okay, if he's not going to have a 400 on base, it's still going to be like 360 something. You live with that because that's still above average. But he was also someone that was going to hit like 260, 270. So he was still doing all the other stuff, even if he sacrifices the walks a little bit. I mean, his season average is all the way down to like 230 now.
Yep.
You're not even getting the singles and doubles with that. So that's a big problem as well.
Yeah, so that's a big problem. And we kind of talked about it on last episode, how hitting is kind of like a contagious thing that kind of runs its way up and down a whole lineup. Also, why are they pitching Edwin Diaz right now?
Well, so he didn't pitch in the Seattle
Is it
series,
just to
and
get him some work?
yeah, and I think I want to say the last game he pitched was last Wednesday, because the last game they won in Colorado, they won by a blowout, so they didn't bring him into that. So yeah, I think it's been almost a week since they brought him in. So I think it's just to make sure he's fresh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially since it's like kind of it's like a very, I wouldn't even say a low leverage situation. It's a pretty non-leverage
Yeah, I was gonna
situation.
say it's a
So
no leverage.
yeah, so it's a pretty non-leverage situation. So it's just kind of it's just kind of an opportunity to, I guess, to keep his arm fresh and get him some work so that when hopefully one of these days the Mets will actually be in need of his services. You would think that,
I think that'd be great.
you,
Me
you would
personally.
hope for that. You would hope for that because that would be ideal. You would think that in one of the next 2 days, not today, but perhaps tomorrow or the next day, that you might find yourself in a situation where you actually do need Edwin Diaz in a save or high leverage type of situation, unless you just, unless the bats just want to wake the fuck up and, just beat the piss out of the A's like teams are supposed to
Hey,
do.
I'm not picky here. They can do that too if they
But
want.
yeah, there's multiple ways to bake a cake.
Right.
Um, so either way, you probably want him to at least not be coming into a situation like that where he's rusty and hasn't pitched in over a week.
We got people
Um,
behind home plate doing the wave. Like, dude, just CPU
oh
simulate the rest of this.
brother,
Like, wrap it up.
yeah, yeah. Can I
Get behind home plate. You're better than this.
yeah. Yeah, I have to say something. I am like the most anti-wave person.
I've really grown to understand the movement behind this.
Yeah, like, I cannot stand the wave. And like, so if it was up to me, the wave would never, be done at a baseball game or at a sporting event. If it were up to me, that might make me a hater. Maybe I'm a grouch. Maybe I don't like fun. I don't
I,
know. I just
I
never,
stand with you.
I just never really cared for it. Maybe it's, I'll always remember, I think the first Yankee game I ever went to at the old Yankee Stadium, I think I was like 9 or 10 years old. And my dad took us to a game, and the Yankees were playing the Angels, and they were winning the game pretty handedly. And people started doing the wave, and I just remember someone yelled, "Stop doing the wave! This is not Shea Stadium." And like
What is they fuck
20,
us for?
well, the Met, Shea Stadium and the Mets pretty much invented the wave. Um, as far as as far as my knowledge
Accusations.
As far
False
as my
accusations.
knowledge of the okay, where did it come from then?
Well, actually, I'll do that right now. But go ahead. I'll look this up.
As far as my knowledge goes, it's my understanding that it was invented at, it was invented like in the 80s, like at Shea is like where the wave really started. Either way, I'm not a big fan of the wave, but at the same, whenever it happens, I just don't participate. Um, if I'm really feeling feisty, I might yell like "knock it off" or something like that. Uh,
On November 15th, 1979, the wave originated at an NHL game between the Colorado Rockies and the Montreal Canadiens in Denver.
wow,
We have beat the charges.
you beat the allegations. Um, this is a rigged court case. This is a
Oh,
nasty
court is out
judge,
of order.
a nasty judge that was in charge of it. I did everything right, and they indicted me. But either way, my point stands. Not a fan of the wave. Never have been. Um, and but at the same time, like, I can understand there's a time and place where the wave is acceptable or not acceptable. Like, I'm not gonna if it was up to me, the wave would never happen. But I can understand, like, there's some wave etiquette. Um, like, for example, when you're losing 9-4 at home, you shouldn't be doing the wave. Like, I understand I understand, like, maybe you're there to have a good time or whatever, and maybe you don't care that much about the outcome of the game. Well, at least that's what that tells me. That's what that tells me if you are doing the wave, like when you're
Especially if you're in the
when
front, if you're behind the plate.
yeah, especially behind the plate. That's just like it's just like a black eye for the whole fan base. Um, but there have been so many times. One thing, like my biggest pet peeve with the wave, because I can understand doing the wave when it's a blowout win. That makes sense. All right. Like if you're up 9-4 and you want to do the wave in the ninth inning, fine. Be my guest. Don't make me participate, but be my guest. But there have been so many times where I've been at baseball games where it's like a close game.
Oh yeah.
And some idiots like, oh yeah, let's get a wave going, and then everyone else starts doing it. I remember I was at a Yankees Indians game once, and it's okay that I say that because that's what they were called at the time. This was like 2017, and it was the year they both ended up. They both ended up making the playoffs, and they played each other in the playoffs, and the Yankees won in 5 games. It was a very exciting series. Anyway, this game was in like August of that year, and I remember it was like 1-1 the entire game. And this is like a pretty big game. Like both teams are, it's like early August, probably like the same time of year that it is like right now. So it's like mid early August. Both teams are, Cleveland was fighting for the Central, and the Yankees Yankees at the time were still fighting for the AL East. And then like they start doing the wave in like the seventh or eighth inning of like a 1-1 ball game, and I just remember this was in Cleveland too, so that made this even better. But it was 1-1, and while they're in the middle of doing the wave in like the eighth inning, Chase Headley, who was a Yankee at the time, hit a home run to like right field. And I remember being like, the nothing like more. The justice has been served. The Yankees ended up winning that game 2-1, and I felt like nothing more justified had like ever happened.
At that
Um,
moment, Francisco Lindor is like, I got to get out of here. These are
yeah,
unserious people.
yeah, yeah. It was that moment where he decided I need to become a New York Met. But and another time that happened was actually this past Wednesday, at the Pirates game against the Padres that I went to. It was a similar situation. It was a similar situation. The Pirates were actually winning at the time, but Pirates were winning at the time, but they were holding, they were like holding on to, they were holding on to a pretty slim lead. And, this is a team between two teams that are, fighting for, well, the Pirates were fighting for positioning in the wild card race, not so much anymore. And then the Pirates were up like I think 4-1 or the Pirates were up like 5-4 in like the sixth or seventh inning, and like people started doing the wave. And I remember I told my family, I was like, if the Pirates lose this game, they deserve everything they get. And sure enough they end up losing that game. They end up losing that game nine to
Listen,
eight
they
in
were
10 innings.
processing trauma. I feel like we can forgive them a little bit for that. I'm not saying it's completely okay what they did, but they've had it rough for about 2 weeks. If that was their way of coping.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think well that was like during the yeah, I don't think that helped is all I'm going to say. Anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm not a fan of the wave, but if you're going to do it, your team should be up by at least like 4 or 5 runs. Mic drop.
And now we're down to our final out in the ninth inning, down 5. But hey, at least you got up and went, hey.
Yeah, at least you had a good
You
time, I
guys feel good
guess.
about yourselves?
Yeah, I sure hope they do, cuz they're going to have to live with that they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. 15
You
minutes
were
from
on
now,
TV.
15 minutes from now you don't give a shit, but we'll have to live with that embarrassment for the rest of our fucking lives. I hope you know what I was referencing.
Oh, I've had a pretty hectic couple days here. You're gonna have to help me out.
So uh that guy Augie, he was his first name was Augie. I forget his last name, but he was the coach of like Texas baseball,
Oh,
and he
Augie Ojeda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Augie Ojeda, and he had like this locker room like meltdown where he's like reaming out the team, and he's like, all right, like 15 minutes from now, you won't give a fuck and you'll be on your merry way. But I have to live with this. He's like, I have to live with this fucking embarrassment for the rest of my fucking life. And then he like starts like digging into them. He was like, if this was a gunfight or a gang fight, which is something that most of you know nothing about, you would be dead.
Oh, Augie
It's
Garrido.
yeah,
Augie Ojeda was a backup infield. I don't know how I pulled that out, but Augie Garrido, the long time. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, I'll have to send you that video because it's great. But moving on, we have some unfortunate injury news that came out today. So Jazz Chisholm left yesterday's game with an apparent UCL injury, and it came out today. Aaron Boone said that he is likely heading to the IL with this UCL injury. And at this time, it is unknown whether or not surgery will be needed. The team is currently, the team's currently working to determine the severity of the injury, which would really just be a tough blow to this team after the spark that he provided, when they got him at the deadline. It felt like he came in and, really, like I said last week or the week before, no one's ever earned their pinstripes quicker than Jazz Chisholm as far as like a midseason acquisition type of thing goes. So here's to hoping that it is not something where he needs surgery, because I would assume if surgery is needed, he's out for the rest of this year, and hopefully he's ready for the start of next year if that is the case.
And I guess the
So
good news with a UCL injury for a hitter is that it's not nearly as time consuming as it is for a pitcher. I mean, it probably does cost you the rest of this year, but more than likely he's probably ready for opening day next year, or at
yeah,
worst
he'll
back
probably
by
be
May.
yeah, or like he'll probably be ready. I feel like I would imagine he'd probably be ready for opening day or like spring training. Like it's not like it's not like if he was a pitcher, it'd be like, all right, we'll see you in 2026, basically.
I mean, Otani's had it twice now, and I don't think he's ever missed time from hitting. He just hasn't been able to pitch.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, even when I feel like even when he gets the injuries like in season, he still continues to hit. But yeah, I'm not sure, what the situation is. I'm not sure what the situation is going to be here, but it does seem like, at the very least, a stint on the IL feels pretty imminent at this time, and hopefully in the coming days we get some good news. Although, for whatever reason, whenever the Yankees are communicating news about injuries, they seem to kind of botch the communication, and it always seems to be it always seems to be it always seems to be like a lot worse than they make it out to be at
Oh, I'm
first.
very familiar with this. That was the Wilpon era for a decade. It's like, oh well, he should be back in about a week.
Yeah.
3 months later.
A whole eternity later.
Those never fail.
Yeah, so hopefully Jazz Chisholm has a speedy recovery and can get back to get back to the lineup soon, because we're definitely going to need him. We might not need him. Hopefully we don't need him to take these next two games against the White Sox. But coming up, the Yankees do have, looking ahead, we have the Tigers after this, who are also not very good, but at the very least, they are.
Well, listen, they beat the dog shit out of George Kirby tonight. Oh my God.
Ooh,
They put
okay,
11
so
runs on him.
we maybe we might be catching the Tigers at just the wrong time. Then maybe they are, maybe their bats are just maybe they're getting hot right now. But yeah, we will be playing the Detroit Tigers after we finish up with the White Sox in Detroit for two of those games, and then the Sunday night game is the Little League Classic in Williamsport. So that should be cool. I guess they'll have the
How long of a drive is that for you?
Williamsport. That's not too bad. I think it's like 3.5, 4 hours maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Like there is I probably won't do it, but like there is a small part of me that would like to go to that game.
Oh, just for the novelty.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I actually have been to like the Little League like like the facilities or whatever. Like I haven't been to Little League World Series games, but like I've been it was something it was a thing I did like for school. It was I forget. It was some like career building type of like program where you could like go somewhere and like meet people and make connections and shit like that. I
Wow.
went to Williamsport for the Little League, and it was pretty cool. I got to I got to like tour I got to like tour like their stadium and shit, and I got to like talk to like people that work there, like people who worked in like their like social media and like PR and communications departments and shit like that.
Wow.
They told me that they told me that the whole Big Al thing. I was like, oh yeah, you guys must have loved that, and they're like, yeah, honestly, we kind of. They're like, honestly, like we kind of didn't like it as much as you would think, because like at the end of the day, like these are kids and like we have to like protect them. Um,
Fair. Fair. Yeah.
and like they were talking. I don't want to air out too much, but they were just saying that like that their parents were getting super overwhelmed by the whole thing, and they were just like, yeah, like you can tell them no. Like if ESPN wants to talk to Big Al, it's totally okay for you to just tell them no.
Wow.
But apparently Big Al is still out there hitting dingers somewhere.
I think I just saw something last week about him.
Yeah, I saw something about him recently too. Yeah, I guess he's like, yeah, like I guess at this point he's like,
He's also
uh,
not like he's not Big Al anymore. It's just like no, he grew.
oh yeah, he did. Yeah, he
He
did
filled
like
out.
another. He
Right.
did like a little cameo or whatever. Like he's like a grown kid now, and
Yeah,
he
he's
just
he's
like
just regular.
he just his balls dropped, and he was just like, hey, I'm Big Al, and I hit dingers. So God bless Big Al. A base, and no matter what happens in your life, you'll be a legend in the baseball community forever. Um, but we will now, we'll now go on to our closing topic for the show. So this week we're going to discuss 1 year where your team didn't win a title that you could give your team a title, or 1 year that like you could have back. Um, I'll let you. I'll let you go first with this one. I feel like I do have a feeling that I know what the answer is or could be. There's probably there's probably three easy ones, or maybe there's something I'm not thinking of.
Well, for the longest time, I would have said 1999 because that was the year that really got my teeth into being a Met fan. Like, growing up in Florida as a kid, I moved down here when I was 7. Especially in the 90s, like extra innings wasn't a thing yet. MLB.TV wasn't a thing yet. So it's like, and especially in Florida where like the cable companies and the Marlins always had a dispute. So like really the only baseball I ever got on TV was like the Braves, the Cubs, and whatever ESPN was going to air. So it's really hard for me.
And the playoff games, I guess.
Right. And, my family were Met fans, but like I didn't have anything to like really sink my teeth into. It's like, okay, well, they win like 75, 80 games every year. Like, who cares? Like, nobody pays attention to them. They don't. And then in 1999, like they were on ESPN like every other week, and they were fun because it was like, oh, you got Piazza, we got Alfonso, we got Ricky Henderson, we got Ventura. Like, okay, I had watched one of the first minor league games I ever went to growing up here uh, when when the Brevard County Manatees played St. Lucie. Ray Ordonez was playing for St. Lucie, and like I had remembered him because like he stood out then, and it's like, oh, that guy's in the big leagues now. Oh, cool. But they were fun. They had the black uniforms. Like Piazza was cool, and they were playing just these incredible close games almost every night. Like they were either coming back or they were hanging on for dear life. And that 99 playoff run was so much fun. And I mean, to my dying day, I'll always believe that if they had forced that game 7 against the Braves, like there was no way in hell we weren't going to win that. Like if you get from 0-3 to 3-3, which hadn't happened at that point, like what? Atlanta wasn't going to blow that at home. And then similar to what the Red Sox did in 04, it's like once you complete that, like everything else like just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the answer for me, it's got to be 2015. That year meant a lot to me. One of the cool stories, I said, I got to cover the Brevard County Manatees for a year. And that year we played St. Lucie first week of the year. And on Jackie Robinson Day, we would play a game at Dodgertown in Vero Beach, which the Dodgers moved away after 2008, and no team took up the vacancy there for spring training or minor league ball. But they would always play a game at Dodgertown on Jackie Robinson Day. And we played St. Lucie that year. And they had this kid named Michael Conforto who hit one literally over the trees in center field. And it was like, okay, yeah, what are you doing here? You don't need to be here. And 6 months later, there I am. I've mentioned a couple shows ago, I got to go to the 2 home games against the Dodgers in the division series. 6 months later, I'm in Citi Field watching a guy I covered down here in Florida 6 months ago at high A ball, and now he's playing for my team in the playoffs. Like it was just, and the other thing that means a lot to me for that year, like also we had been so bad for so long, and like just to be back in the mix again, it was like getting the needle from Pulp Fiction. Like, you mean baseball can be fun? This is great. But prior to the season, I lost my grandfather, who was one of the reasons I became a Met fan. He was one of the original Met fans who, were a Brooklyn Dodger fan. In his case, he was, or a New York Giant fan that just didn't have a team after they moved out west. And they were like, well, I'm not rooting for the Yankees. And then they got a National League team back, and they're like, well, this is it. And my grandfather was one of the big reasons that I'm a Met fan. And I'll never forget, he passed in the morning, and that night my cousin had flown down to see him before he died. And me and him and my brother were out drinking downtown, and I said, well, if there's ever going to be a year that the Mets win it or the Rangers win the cup, it better be this one.
Yeah.
And the takeaway for me, I'll always remember, is at Game 3 of the NLDS, the Mets still do this. They do a veteran of the game thing, where it's like, they'll honor someone who's served, and they'll give their story, and then like a former Met player or like someone of note will like present them with something. And I think the Cespedes home run had just happened. And they had, for that night, a 91-year-old World War II vet. And he got a American flag from Edgardo Alfonso, who was my favorite Met growing up. He was like, everybody loved Piazza, obviously, but Fonzie was my guy. And had my grandfather been alive that night, he would have been 91, and he was at Normandy. So, like, everything's happening in this game, and then that.
Yeah.
Like, I ran out of my seat. Like, I ran to the concourse because I'm like, this whole section's been watching me, like, just curse out the Dodgers and, like, heckle them and all of this for 4 innings. Like, they can't see me turn into a baby right now for no reason.
Yeah.
So, like, emotionally, that year means a lot to me just because of everything that was going on in my life. And I think for the Mets, like, the one to get it would have been great to have a title that I was conscious for. But if David Wright comes back from injury and helps lead the Mets to a World Series, he's officially stamped as the greatest Met position player in the franchise history. and probably retires right then and there, I would bet. Matt Harvey's perception changes a lot more. He'd be Steven Strasburg. He would have sacrificed his career, but everyone would have been able to look at him like, yeah, but look what he did for you. Jacob DeGrom's, I think, perception is a lot different because I don't think it's true of all Met fans, but I mean, were a fair number of them who were very upset when he left, understandably.
Yeah.
But I mean, and he was they don't beat the Dodgers without Jacob DeGrom. If he helps pitch that team to a World Series, I think it makes his departure a lot easier. I would definitely say that I don't think the bridge is burned. I think that's one of those things that time heals all wounds, and eventually 48 is going to go up there with all the other numbers. But if he had gotten us a World Series, it'd be like, hey, look, what else was there to do here? You did everything. Go get yours, man. And so, yeah, I mean, from the day of the trade deadline through the end of the NLCS is the most fun I've ever had as a Met fan. Like, I couldn't wait to watch I couldn't wait to get home from work. You know, if I was out like working with Florida Tech football at that time, I couldn't wait to get back on the bus and like, you know, I'd put in my headphones and listen to the game on the way home. And to know we were 8 outs away, we were 2 outs away in game 1. We were 5 outs away in game 4 and 1 out away in game 5. And just, if any of those go differently, I'm probably a nicer person. I'm probably a much more pleasant person than I am today.
It's it's like such a different series. Like, you know, if you win, you know, any of those games, you know, could have just changed.
And this is what time does, because people are like, the Royals won that series in 5. That must have been a breeze. It was not.
No.
I wish it would have been a breeze. It would have been easier to deal with.
Yeah, it would have been a lot easier if they just lost every game like 16-1.
Yeah, like okay, we didn't have it. What can you do?
Yeah, no, but the Mets were right there in all those games, and like that 9th inning of Game 5 was just like even if they would have just won that game, like I feel like
the one that hurts me, it's the Alex Gordon homer in Game 1, because I feel like if they win Game 1, even if they lose Game 2, it's all right. Well, we got to split. That's what we needed. Now we're going home.
That's a win. Yeah.
Like when he hit that, like I'm like, okay, that was our shot.
Yeah,
and then they won Game 2, and it's like now we're gonna win 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and then like you're going, and then like so then like you're splitting, and then you're going up 2-1 instead of down 2-1 in Game 3, and Game 3s in playoff series, in 7-game playoff series, are always like. That always, like, obviously the game is, you know, the series is decided when it's decided, but like the Game 3 always feels like kind of like the most pivotal point in the series. So like to be like, you know, to be in a different position where you're going up 2-1, and then, you know, you'd be going up 2-1, and then, you know, maybe you lose the next game and it's 2-2, and then, you know, even to be going into that game, you know, with a chance to go up 3-2, and if things go differently there, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's one of those things where I'm sure it's like, you know, as a Met fan, you're probably like, you know, that's one that you're like going to the grave with.
Oh, I've replayed it in my head a million times.
Yeah, it might be another million times. You know, between now and then.
I don't need a dynasty. I just need one goddamn title.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I do feel that. Like, you know, obviously, you know, I was too young to really like appreciate the dynasty. You know, so as cool as it would be to have another one, it like kind of taught, you know, once you know, like losing kind of teaches you like how hard it really is to win. So
immensely so.
Yeah, in so many different ways. So it's like, you know, losing teaches you how hard it is to win, and it makes you
get to that. Just to get to that
just
stage.
get to that point. Yeah, and it makes you, you know, it makes you appreciate it more. You know, so like, you know, like I was kind of too young to really understand or appreciate like what the Yankees were doing at that time between '98 and 2000. So when they won again in 2009, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna like really appreciate it. And now I'm like, all right, like I just, you know, just get me one more where like, you know, get me one for like Judge and, get me one for Judge's career and one that I can like legally drink for. It's kind of like the way I feel. So with that being said, I had kind of also narrowed it down to like 3 years, and my answer for this is also one that's is also one that might surprise some people, and also might and also is like more personal to me rather than like more personal like my life and myself rather than like what most Yankee fans would probably say. So obviously the obvious one that comes to mind is 2001, right? Like, you know, in the right after September 11th, like we were a healing nation, a healing city, a healing state. And then Luis Gonzalez just like, rips that, just rips that out of you. So like that's an obvious one, but that's not the one I'm going to go with. And also, of course, like, just seeing like how dejected Mariano Rivera was after that and like how much that affected him. And just like, just anytime you lose like that, it,
I
regardless
do
of
have
what
to
you did.
wonder if, in a way, it almost feels like there's honor in going out on your shield. Like, yeah, we just won 3 in a row, and that's
And
how they had to beat us. They had to beat us, and then in the bottom of the ninth inning of Game 7 against the best ever, and it took them having two guys like that. Like, we didn't just give it up. Like,
yeah,
you had to give every last ounce of effort to beat us. Like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. And that,
it
yeah,
sucks
and
to
that
lose, but
series. Yeah, and like they did go, yeah, and like, you know, it being fair, the Diamondbacks were definitely the better team in that series overall. Like it was such a close and such a good like back and forth series. Like the Diamondbacks go up 2-0 with Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, and then Yankees rip off 3 wins in a row at home. Derek Jeter becomes Mr. November. When he hits like a home run on Halloween as like the clock striking midnight into November. And I think that was the first time we ever got November baseball because like everything got pushed back a week because of 9/11. Um so like, that one definitely stung, and when you're that close and it's like god, like, just get that last out, and you get that last out and you have one more. But that's not my answer. Another one I thought of Another one I thought of was 2017. Um, Now, 2017 was a year that was like supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Yankees, but it turns out that a rebuild is having like your rookie superstar hit 52 home runs. And as time goes by, like at the time, like I was like not really salty about it at all. Like, I mean, I wasn't happy, but like for me, like that felt like a renaissance year, like for the Yankees and like for my Yankee fandom. Like I just remember like that was like before before like the new balanced schedule that they have now. The Yankees would only go to Pittsburgh like once every like 6 years or something like that. And they happened to be in Pittsburgh that year. And I remember like going there. It was like early in the season. We were off to like a pretty good start. You could tell right away, you could tell right away that like Aaron Judge was something special. I remember I saw him hit like a 450 something foot home run like to like the scoreboard in left center field. It was like one of like one of the longest home runs I've like ever seen in person live. And I just remember feeling like, okay, like this is it. Like we're back. Like we are so fucking back. And they never really, and since then they haven't gotten as close. So 2017 is one that I would love to have back. Looking back, I remember watching that ALCS against the Astros, and this was before there was like any real beef with the Yankees and Astros. Like that was the first time they had really played each other in a playoff series. Number one, and number two, like at the time it was like the Astros were like a very innocent and nice story at that time because it was like this is a team that like built their team the right way. It's kind of like Sports Illustrated predicted this like 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was, and like good for them. They did it, and like they were the better team, and they deserved to beat us that series. Even though looking back, it's like I remember Todd Frazier had like I think it was when they still had the hill in center field, but Todd Frazier hits one to like dead straightaway center field that just like dies. Like the ball just died at the hill. And I remember like off the bat, I was like, "Oh, that's gone. Like we're gonna win this game, and we're gonna win this game, and we're gonna win the series." I think it was like Game 6, and then it dies at the hill. We lose that game, and then and then we lose the next night. I think CC gave like a valiant effort, but after like after like 4 or 5 innings, he was just toast, and the Yankees just couldn't fight back. Verlander was too good, and they were just they were outmatched. That is one I'd love to have back, just because of like how fun that team was, and the fact that since then they haven't nearly been as close, and don't think Joe Girardi deserved to lose his job over that season. Although, I think at this point, that's water under the bridge. And, at this point, they probably would have had to change managers anyway. But my answer.
It's also a perfect example. You mentioned 2017, 2015 for me. Windows are never open as long as you think they're going to be. I mean, we
Right.
thought that it's like, oh, we have Harvey, DeGrom, Thor, and Matz, and we're going to have Wheeler back. Like, all right,
And
we got
all so
another
young
7
at the
years.
time, too. Yeah. Yeah. And I
And
remember thinking, too, like, oh, yeah, this is just the beginning, and.
the only guys left from that team for the Yankees are Judge and I think Tommy Canley, and he came back. So
Yeah,
Judge is
he
really the
left
only guy left.
Canley left and came back twice, actually, I think.
You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you think like just that core is like, between him, Sanchez.
Yeah, because Canley was on the 2017 team. Then I think a year or two later, he signed elsewhere. I think it might have been the White Sox. And then I think
He went to the Dodgers too, I think.
yeah, he had to stop there. He might have stopped in Detroit too. I feel like Tommy Canley would be like a good immaculate grid player, 'cause he's played for a lot of teams. Uh,
Another guy that's come from the conference that my school works in. He went to Lynn University in Boca, won a national championship there.
oh wow, good for him. Shout outs to Boca. Um, But then the Yankees got him back, I think in like it might have been like 2021 or like the COVID season or something like that. And then he left again, and then like they just picked him up again, like at like the deadline. So yeah, Tommy Canley, we are inevitable. Just stop leaving us, because you're always gonna find your way back to me and us. And hopefully we will get you, hopefully we will give you something more than a national championship in Boca Raton to celebrate one of these days. But for me, my actual answer to this question, and it's also for very personal reasons, but it's actually the 2003 World Series against the Marlins.
Ooh.
And I know that if you ask like the average, sorry, I'm plugging in my laptop. If you ask the average Yankee fan, they'll probably be like, "Oh, like, why do you care so much about that?" Like, I feel like that's one that, I mean, obviously you wanna have every World Series that you can, and that one looking back, it like doesn't really feel like, oh, that's one that like, that it doesn't really feel like, oh, that's one that got away from us, like the way that like the 2001 World Series kind of feels that way, or like how, losing like the 2004 ALCS might feel, or like losing the 2017 ALCS when you were up 3-2 in that series. Like, it wasn't one where it's like, oh, that got away from us. Like, they only led the series like uh they were up, I believe they were up 1-0 after game 1, and I believe they won game 3 to go up 2-1, and then the Marlins won 3 straight, if my memory serves me
Yep.
correctly. Um and fuck Josh Beckett forever. But the reason that World Series is the one that I want back, and the one that I kind of like hold near and dear to my heart is like one that I wish I would have had, is also for very personal reasons. Because in 2003, in July of 2003, my dad passed away in a plane crash. And at that time, like, obviously I was 13 years old, and, had just like experienced this very like traumatic event and everything. And, so my distraction from that was the Yankees, essentially. Like, the Jets weren't very good. Like, sports were pretty much my distraction from like all the real shit that was like going on in my life, and like all the emotions, and like, all the like things and trauma that I was like processing at the time. Um, that those are like my distractions, or like my escape from that. So, obviously when Aaron Boone hit, like, all, as much as
Oh
as
man, yeah.
as infuriating as Aaron Boone can be as a manager, and it might be the only reason that he is our manager, I'll always be grateful for him, for hitting that walk-off World Series. Because I just remember, like, that night, I think I woke up my whole family the night he hit that home run. 'Cause I just remember screaming like "Yankees win!" I think my mom was just like, "Shut up," uh, uh, and yeah, like, that was like, yeah, but that was like the most joy that I had in, that was the most joy I had in like 3 months at that time, was Aaron Boone hitting that home run. So then I kind of go into it thinking like, all right, like, the Marlins, like, this should be easy, and it was anything but that. And, props to the Marlins. They got it done, and they were the better team. That game 4 was pretty, losing in the 12th inning was pretty devastating. But then also, I remember there was one, I think in game 5, at the very last play of that game, I believe, like, yeah, it was like, uh Bernie will, or it might have been like the second to last out of the game, actually. I think Bernie Williams hit a ball like to the warning track. Juan Encarnacion caught it, uh and it was like inches short of a home run. Would have definitely been gone, even in old Yankee Stadium. And I'm pretty sure they had a runner on base at the time, so at least one runner on. So it would have either tied the game or given us the lead. But Bernie Williams just misses that home run, and then Hideki Matsui grounds out like the next at bat, and then that game was over. And then Josh Beckett was just mowing us down all night. I don't even know if we got a runner to third base in that game.
I also can't even imagine. I mean, and I know everything that happened for you personally, and I know it matters more, especially then. But especially being that age, when we're growing up, it's like sports feel bigger than life. I
Yeah,
mean, even now, for as much as it matters to us now, when you're a kid, like, I mean, it truly feels like the only thing that matters in your life. And I know for me, as a neutral, watching those Yankees Red Sox series in 03 and 04, I mean, like, I was tired watching those games. I can't
yeah.
imagine like actually having stakes in that and being through it. So,
Oh man, yeah,
and then like to add all the weight to that for you is, man, I salute.
yeah. No, I appreciate it, and this was a good, salute to you, because this topic was your idea. So I have to give credit where it's due, and we both, I guess, we both got to, get to know each other on a little bit more of a personal level through doing this. So it's interesting how, the way that sports can, bring people together in that way, and kind of get people to like open up, like like if it wasn't for, it's just funny thinking about like how, like, if it wasn't for sports or like a baseball podcast, it's like I would never tell some stranger on the internet in Florida, like, about like my life and my trauma and shit. But here I am trauma dumping on you on the podcast.
Right. I
Um,
mean, and it's not like I would tell anybody that like I openly would cry about something, but like being at a
yeah,
playoff game after, my grandfather was my hero, knowing that everything he had done in his life,
yeah.
and it's like it felt like in that moment it was like, hey, he's here, he's watching you,
Oh
and like
yeah, no.
in that
When you
moment,
were Yeah, when you were describing that, and you were describing like how the veteran of the game was like a year older than your grandfather and everything, and how you went from like heckling the Dodgers to like, oh shit, like I can't
I'm not gonna make it.
I can't be you go from that to like I can't be seen in public right now.
Yeah,
I got goosebumps when you were telling that story. So
my
I really
grandfather was. He always used to brag about he was a radio man on the LST warships. And so one of the things he always did was he had to relay the baseball scores from America for the rest of the ship because it's the 40s and baseball's the biggest sport. And he said even if the Brooklyn Dodgers lost, I would just lie and say they won. That was it. But he grew up in that era where it's like, yeah, you'd be in the off season, you'd be walking around Brooklyn, and it's like, oh hey, it's Duke Snyder working in the deli, and that wasn't anything. It was like if that happened now, it'd be a big deal. But it's like, no, that was just like you just saw the guys walking around town. That was you could tell me about all the times he snuck into Ebbets Field, like all the different things that he was, and like the Mets were kind of that for him. Like he knew their whole history because he was there, and it was just one of the like as that run kept going on, I'm like he had been through a lot health wise. I was like I'm glad he's not hurting, but man, I wish he had been here to see how insane this is.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's like definitely, and even the fact that, even though they didn't end up winning it all that year, I'm sure, I'm sure that even during that run, I'm sure it was like very emotional, and even for him to like experience that with you, I'm sure would have been like amazing.
Well, he was always the more level headed. I mean, because I'm certainly emotional about this stuff. And I remember growing up as a kid and asking him about and learning about the history of the game and finding that the Dodgers would always get to the World Series and they'd lose. And I remember just asking him once, I'm like, man, what was it like? They finally beat the Yankees and won the World Series. That must have been like outside of like the birth of your kids and Mary and Grammy, that must have been the greatest day of your life. And he's like,
Yeah.
I turned off the radio and went to work. I'm like, that's it.
Like, bro, are you kidding?
That's what I do. It's a part of my life, but I had work.
That's crazy. If any of my teams win a championship anytime soon, I don't think I'm going to work for like a week.
No.
I'll show up for this. I'll show up for the podcast to talk all about it. But as far as my actual job goes, like, I don't know, if the Yankees win the World Series, I'll see you guys in November, pretty much.
But he would be the type, like he was always the type that would root for the National League in the World Series no matter what. Like even when like the Phillies or the Braves were in it, I'd be like, man, how can you root for them? They're in our division. He goes, because he's from that era where it's like you rooted for your league, like you were all together. But if it was the LA Dodgers and the Yankees, it's like the World Series didn't happen. He would not acknowledge it was going on, and he'd
be working
can't bring
overtime.
Up the name O'Malley around him. There's that'll get ugly quick.
He is a I remember one person was like talking about him on the Michael K show, and he called him a money hungry grummy. And I'm sure
those were a few of the words. Yeah.
I'm sure there are some other more profane words that might have been laced in there as well. I mean, I also feel like just from that description, I assume he was probably like very anti DH. Safe to say.
Oh, he was a purist.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, probably didn't think it should exist. Probably
he wasn't that wild about interleague play. He's like,
I think a lot of
what is this?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people that are anti DH like share that sentiment. And at this point, I'm just keeping the banter going to see whether or not the Yankees are going to blow this lead to the White Sox right now. They currently, ooh, is that interference? They're up 4-1. The bases are loaded in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. I think that's interference. Although, I mean, okay, that was a weird play. So it's 4-1, 0-2 count, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Um, Baldwin for the White Sox. Oh, he went. He went. Yeah, you're done. Yankees win. Sit down. The play before that was weird though. He pops up a ball into foul territory, and so Austin Wells is like running to get it, but he kind of like elbows him, sort of. Like it looked, he kind of, I don't know if it was intentional or not. He kind of did a good job. If it was intentional, he did a good enough job of making it look unintentional. But like he kind of like took his arms back and like elbowed Austin Wells, so like it kind of like obstructed his path to like go and catch the ball. I'm
If
not
Brooks
even sure.
Baldwin ain't the most Duke ass name I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, yeah, right up there with Daniel Jones and who was the guy from last week?
Oh, oh man, I'm drawing a total blank. Crap. But it's like
Yeah,
Dansby Swanson. I know he went to Vanderbilt, which like Southern old money, but like right in that category.
yeah, it might have been Dansby Swanson actually. Now that I think about it, but yeah, either way, that's gonna
Oh, the Twins called up a guy named Zebby Matthews, and
Zebby
people were
Matthews.
people were losing their minds. And I'm like, sometimes you know if a guy's supposed to be good, like based on
Just
his
by the
name.
name, yeah.
Like when Ichiro came, and we found out like. I mean, yeah, you can call him Ichiro Suzuki, but like he has Ichiro on the back of his uniform. Everyone just calls him Ichiro. It's like, okay, yeah, that guy's gonna be something.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me a guy named Zebby is going to be hanging around for 14, 15 years? That's what you're telling me?
Yeah, Zebra.
And I say that with no disrespect to Zebby Matthews, but we're not going to be watching like year in reviews, when we're 60, 70 years old. It was like, and the fates of the Minnesota Twins franchise changed the day that Zebby Matthews put on the Twins uniform. No, that's not happening.
Yeah, yeah, no chance. Maybe he'll be okay. I don't know, but yeah, it's not going to
I'll
be
run this at his Cooperstown induction, and I'll be dead.
yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I'll be there with you because that would be, I don't know if I'd want to live with that type of embarrassment. But yeah, that's pretty much that's going to do it for us. Fuck Jared Leto. He undid all of Grimace's doing.
The blood's on his hands.
Yep. Tropicana Field needs a new scoreboard. My bets are on them not getting one because you're moving out anyway. Why would you?
Jordan, Rick James, Alvarez.
Yep. That is, yeah. He said fuck your scoreboard.
Another one, you rich motherfucker.
But yeah, that'll do it for us. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube as always. Like, comment, all that good stuff. Make sure you follow us on our socials down below. And again, just another reminder to go ahead and vote in the poll to be the decider of the future of our fate of the show and what we will call ourselves. There's a lot at stake: branding, marketing opportunities, all that shit. So just remember that when you're in the voting booth, you have until Friday at about 1 p.m. Eastern. But that's going to do it for us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.